anyhow, so I think I talked about that a little bit. I don't think I have to repeat. So we're talking about strategy, environment, toolbox, and results. This is another interesting case in Brazil. It's called ONS. ONS is the national operator of the interconnected power system. I always have this joke with ONS CEOs that the only time he's on TV is when Brazil is on a crisis, when we don't have any light and we don't have any energy for production. So all of their executives are on TV trying to explain what cannot be explained, right? So those guys, they have a huge problem. They need to manage knowledge. So, so they asked us for if we had a methodology for KM implementation. And we did have, because we reviewed literature and we had 10 years of research. And this implementation process is really interesting because the first thing we asked the executive, the president or CEO is, all right, so you want to manage knowledge, right? And he says, yes. Okay, so my second question is, what is knowledge? What kind of knowledge are you talking about? And what is organizational knowledge? How do you view knowledge in your organization? So we discussed a little bit of their epistemological view. The second thing we do is we believe that we need to have a committee for the governance of the KM process with direct report to the CEO. A third step was to try to identify and map the macro, what they call macro knowledge, the knowledge map. And we do so by looking at macro processes, their strategy, and sometimes their balanced scorecards. Then, after we found the major components of the K-map, we have to deploy it. We have to deploy this K-map in different organizational areas. We go to the directorships into more specific levels. So we build a knowledge taxonomy for them. And then after we do find the knowledge that is in some, what they call critical knowledge, we ask them, what kind of emphasis are we talking about? Are we talking about knowledge retention, sharing, or creation? 1, 2, 3, or 1 and 2, or 1 and 3, or 2 and 3, or 1, 2, and 3 at the same time. And then we select IT tools and good practices and define metrics and always work on a pilot project. So we do the implementation in small bites. So this is ONS knowledge map. So we use CMAPs for that. And it's funny because after we found that, we did all the deployments that we had to do. If you take a look, this is really interesting. Electromagnetic transients. That kind of knowledge only exists at ONS. But the university doesn't teach that anymore. And that organon software tool, we found out that that's a critical knowledge for their operation. 4 people are aware of the operation of the software. 2 guys are probably 65 years old, and were the guys who, worked on the software 25 years ago. And so those yellow ones are critical knowledge. So this is knowledge that it's in danger, that they can lose in a little bit. So that work lasts for like a year and a half, 2 years and a half, and we're still working with them. So I have a few different practices just to show you how Nokia Siemens Networks is doing in Brazil, PricewaterhouseCoopers and Siemens, so you can have an idea what kind of practices they have to KM. So this is CDC's Sugarcane Technology Center. Right now they're #1 in sugarcane technology. It's an amazing organization. Their budget is like $45 million only. They have $45 million to be #1 in that industry, and they compete with small organizations like Monsanto and BASF and all of those giants. So this is how they generate their ideas for innovation. And for them, innovation is not only about technology, it's also about business model. So they developed, a homemade tool. They didn't have a lot of money for IT. And so this tool is based on technical, economical, and strategical criteria. This evaluation tool determines what kind of ideas are going to be valued. So they have an internal committee, a technical committee, and then they work with feedback, and they know what kind of projects are going ahead or no. They do now have a problem after 8 years of implementation, most of their PhD and their scientists are sharing, but they have a problem right now. They cannot give them feedback. So what happens when you put your idea here and you have no answer? So first, the problem is we don't have any ideas. People are not sharing. People are not putting their ideas here. Okay, 8 years working on social stuff and behavior stuff, but now they have a different problem. Now people are putting their ideas for R&D and innovation, but we cannot answer them. So sometimes you can put your idea here and you don't know what's going to happen. No one gives you feedback. This is Siemens ShareNet. I don't know if you probably read that from Thomas Davenport. This is ShareNet Brazil. And this is, at ShareNet, you can do many different things. You can post urgent requests. You can take part in discussion forums. You can chat and stuff like that. This case is interesting. This guy was working in Brazil, building a dam at the south of Brazil, and he was having a problem with CP11-3D, and he couldn't answer it. So after 3 weeks trying, he remembered that they had ShareNet, and he posted his question. 3 hours and a half later, a guy from the Netherlands answered him, and he put the back in time again. This is how ShareNet looks nowadays. It has moved to Nokia Siemens networks. It's no longer Siemens alone. It has moved to the joint venture. And we just finished a research, and I want to check those numbers again, because the results show that 98% of Nokia Siemens networks employees are using ShareNet on a daily basis. I don't believe that number, so I'd like to check that again. But it's really amazing the level of cooperation that they have at Siemens and Nokia Siemens networks. And I wonder, does it have to do anything to do with the German culture? I don't know. That's something we need to investigate. They have changed their ways of capturing knowledge and ideas. It's called now Got an Idea. And they have been using many different blogs and wikis for sharing and learning and the like. This is brand new. We just finished that research. This is brand new. And this is one of my favorite tools from PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's called GBP. GBP was abandoned in Brazil. It's one of the best KM tools I've ever seen. I don't know why people abandoned that in Brazil, but I was talking to one of the executives in Canada and South Africa and France, and they were telling me that this is one of the most widely used tools, knowledge management tools that they have. This is really interesting. For example, imagine that me and Sam are working for PricewaterhouseCoopers Brazil, and we are consultants for the auto industry. So we go on a consulting process, and it takes us 1.5 years to solve the puzzle. Okay, so we have metrics. So we have to document the way we solve the problem. So we did the documentation. It goes over the internet. Okay, it's over there somehow. Okay, a few months later, someone from PricewaterhouseCoopers Australia, for example, has the same kind of problem. So his question is, has anyone solved that kind of problem before at PricewaterhouseCoopers? So he does a basic search, and he finds Sam and mine's documents. So he reads it, adapts it, talk to us, and he can use that again. So he can reuse knowledge at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Well, the person who used that existing knowledge has to classify the knowledge. So for example, it could be number 7. Had a high performance in the client, and that solution was of high importance to the local business unit. So it becomes a best practice at PricewaterhouseCoopers. So what determines if it's a good practice or no is not the guy who writes it, but someone who uses it again. So that's the logics behind this tool. But after 10 years of it, now they have a problem, which is people only look at GBP. They're not thinking anymore. Well, they have a problem, they try to look at this database. So sometimes it can kill innovation. So that idea of exploration and exploitation, they're only work with exploration of this database. They're not creating new knowledge. So that's a big issue for PricewaterhouseCoopers.